Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we are going to be continuing on with our C# tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at the increment and decrement operators, as well as increment assignment and decrement assignment operators, as I like to call them. So, what is the increment operator? Well, the increment operator is a plus, it's a double plus, and that adds 1 to the current variable value. So let's say you have a variable called a, right? And you put the plus there, or rather, you put the plus on another variable called b. Whatever the value of a is, will be incremented by 1 and assigned to b. Now let's go ahead and demonstrate that. We talked a little bit of theory. Let's now actually put it into practice. So let's say we have an int called a, and we set it to 5. And we have int b equals, and we want b to be 1 more than 5. So in order to do that, you might think, oh, let's go ahead and just do a plus, right? And you would be forgiven for thinking that. Let's go ahead and output b to the console. Go ahead and run your code with Control F5. And you can see in your output console, b is still 5. Now, why is that? Well, the order in which you place the plus, the increment operator, matters. Okay? So, if you place it like we have now, where it's the suffix of the statement, it's at the end of the statement right before the semicolon, that means the increment doesn't happen until after b is used. Right? So let's say then we have an integer called c, and we can set that equal then to b. What happens then? Let's go ahead and do a console.writeLine C. Like that. Go ahead and run your code. I'm going to go ahead and invert my colors here while I'm at it. And we're going to zoom in on our output console. So you can see our first output is still 5. Our first output is 5, and our second output is 5. So what happened there then? Well, we're not doing anything else with a, so it's not incrementing. It's not going to increment until we do another thing with it, right? Now, we see this actually do something when we, for example, do loops, and we'll take a look at that when we get to loops. But let's say we actually want, let's say we want to do the incrementing before it's used. So you do plus a, and then it will do any incrementing before it's used. And we can do that by saying int d is equal to plus plus A. Excuse me. So we have int D plus or equals plus plus A, right? So now when we output D, console write line D. And in fact, I'm going to also do another C++ here, or rather we're gonna do another, say, B++. Or no, we're gonna do a B equals A++ again, and now we're gonna output B again. Right, and we'll go ahead and get rid of C. Okay, so now we got rid of C altogether. Okay. So go ahead now and run the code. I'm going to, again, invert my color so we can zoom in on the results. Okay. So you can see that 5 is the initial result of doing, is the initial value of B after doing A++. Because, again, it didn't do anything with the value of B, or it didn't do anything with the value of A because, well, it wasn't going to increment it until after something was done with it. And because we incremented again using the plus plus, something was done with it, so value went up 1, and now it's 6, which we can see in the console, right? And then the next value we output is as we can see, 8. Now, why is this? Why is it 8 instead of 7? Well, the reason why is because we did those initial plus pluses before, so we did 2 of them. We incremented it twice. And so that goes and says, hey, we want it to be 8 this time. Now, if we go back into our code, we can kind of go and explain this a little bit further. So the plus plus operator is an operator that essentially doesn't have like 2 sides to it. It only has 1 side. And what it does essentially is, okay, so let's go through our code to better explain this. So we have integer A, right? We have integer A, and that's equal to 5. We have integer B, which we're setting to A++. So that adds 1 to A. But we're also assigning that value to B. So we're doing 2 things at once here. We're setting B to whatever A++ is after the increment happens. After the increment happens when something else happens to that value. So that's one increment. Now A is 6 so far. Then so after, then B equals A++ down here. Now it's 6. Or rather, right now it's 6. Then after this, it's 7. And now, when we go down to D, D equals plus A. That goes and increments it again for a third time. And now A is 8. And so D is set to 8. Right? So that's kind of how that works. You can assign the resulting value of whatever the plus operation is to another variable, but you also need to keep in mind that when you do plus, it also increments the value of the variable that you attach the plus to. That's why you don't typically see the result of a plus or minus operation happening to a separate variable. You usually see it happen to the same variable in like a loop, for example, which again, we'll cover that later. And the same sort of logic applies when we're dealing with minus, right? So let's say we go ahead and just copy all this code. Excuse me. So we can go ahead and just copy all this code like that. But we'll change the variable names around. So we'll say E and F. And instead of plus, we can do a minus, like that. F equals E plus. And instead of plus, we can do a minus like that. So we can do F and again output F. G equals minus E. And then we can output G. Go ahead and save it and run your code now. Right. So let's zoom in on our results here and we can take a look at what it did. Okay, so you can see here that we have our additions going on here. So 5, 6, 6. And so here then 5, 6, 6, 8. And then we have our 8. So we then have our 5, right? We have a 5, and we subtract 2. So till we get 3. Now, let's take a look at our code again. Right. Okay. So we have int e equals 5. And then we can go ahead and do f e. Okay. There we go. So now what it should do is it should then minus 3 from the original e value, which we would get 2, right? So again, we have e equals 5. And then we have int f is equal to e minus minus. So that is going to do the decrement after something's done with it. We go down here, and we're outputting the value of f, which is still 5 at this point. Then f will then, once we do f equals e minus minus, now it'll be 4. And so now when we output, it'll be 4. And again, we do an f equals e minus minus, or rather, we do an int g equals minus minus e, and that's going down a third time. But this time, because minus minus is before the e, the decrement happens immediately and is assigned, and then that new value is assigned. And so now g will be equal to 2. And when we output g, we'll see 2. Right? Go ahead and save it and run your code, and you'll see there it is, 2. Okay. So that is the increment and decrement operators. Relatively simple, but also kind of a little bit complicated, and that's okay. Just it took me a while to understand the difference as well. So what I recommend is just playing around with it. Play around with it, see what values you get, so you can have a better understanding about it. Read some articles about it online. Read the documentation too. It'll help you with that as well. So the next things we're going to talk about are what I like to call the increment assignment and decrement assignment operators. And these are plus equals and minus equals. These allow you to add a specific number or subtract a specific number from a value. It doesn't just subtract 1 or add 1, though you can have it do exactly that if you need to. But why would you do that when you have the specific plus plus and minus minus operators to do that? You could, for example, say add 5 or subtract 5 or add 10, subtract 12 or something like that, right? So let's say we have int x, and this variable is going to have a value of 20. Well, then we want y to be 5 more than x. And we can do this by saying x plus equals 5. And so plus equals, I'm going to put a comment up here. This is the same as int y, or rather, same as int y equals x plus 5. Right? That it's the same as that, but in a little bit different way of doing it. Well, okay. Actually, you know what? I guess a better example of that would be, we just want to set x to 5 more than x. And we can say x plus equals 5, like that. And we can say the same as x equals x plus 5. So this is the more proper way of doing it. X plus equals 5 when you want to add another given amount to the same variable. That way it just works better and you're not going to get a syntax error. The previous way I did, the previous thing I did, that would have given you a syntax error. So keep that in mind. The plus equals is for assigning, is incrementing a given value to an already existing variable. It's used very often for counters, but you don't have to use it that way. The same thing goes for minus equals. So let's say int y is equal to, let's say 30. So we have int y equals 30, and we want y, after we assign it, to be 5 less than what we initialized it to. So then we can do a y minus equals 5, like that. And so we can then have a comment, same as y equals y minus 5, like that. Okay. And then we can console.writeLine x and console.writeLine y. Okay, and then we can run that. And there we go. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.